The journey never ends when you really do not know where you're going to begin and where you're going to end up. Looking back, never thought, never imagined, never wanted to choose this path. But I always knew that I wanted to give it my all. Maybe the broke dream of being a tennis player like a Roger Federer, or being the next car racer like Schumacher. I always knew that I wanted to give it my all. I just look around me and I see the immense need that surrounds this nation. And I look at issues like occult, idol worship, rape, hunger, starvation, child abuse, and you sometimes will wonder how insignificant I really feel in the midst of all this. I think the only thing that's going for me is that I don't have to start from scratch, because I stand on the legacy of my father, who has done great things for the kingdom. Last month I visited one of the orphanages. I was so excited for these kids because they had an amazing infrastructure, facilities, amazing parents who loved them. Until I saw this little 4-year-old kid who had this sad look on his face. Nothing would make him smile. And to my surprise, I saw scratches and marks on his arms and on his neck, and it just broke my heart. And I would try again and again to make him smile. I would try to crack jokes, and I always thought I was super funny, but for some reason it would not work with this child. Just then it dawned to me that, because I had never experienced anything like this, maybe this kid doesn't know how to accept love, because this kid has been always in sadness and sorrow, and his parents and anyone who has come in his life has always let him down, which is why he's abandoned and an orphan to begin with. And it just made me wonder that how in desperate need these kids really are. So I was in a mission that I was like, I'm going to make sure that I make this trip worth their while. So I looked at the parents and I was like, okay, we're gonna start playing some games. And I said, do you have a soccer ball, a normal ball, a bat, so we can play cricket, soccer, some games that I can play with these kids so I can really lighten up their mood? And they looked at me with a weird look, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. You have something for these kids to play with, right? And they looked at me and they said, we really don't. Because we clothe them, we feed them, we pay for all the utilities, we give them everything that they need because they have absolutely nothing. And believe it or not, games and things to play with comes pretty below in their priority. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is too much. So I was like, okay, no problem. I don't want the kids to know that we were not going to do something fun, because I wanted to change the sadness on that little kid's face. So I was like, okay, we're going to play a racing game. So these kids were like, what? Racing game? So I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make teams of 4 and we start having races. And I said, every person who wins the race goes on to the next round. So we started playing and playing. It was so funny that it was the same sad kid who was the last man standing who had to race with me. So I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. I can either make it or break it. So I was like, are you ready? He looked kind of excited a little bit. And then I was like, okay, ready, set, go. And then we started running and running and running. And I could see that he was giving it his all. And he was running so hard. And as we were approaching the finish line, I made sure that I lost. And then he just ran to all his brothers and they were like laughing and picking him up and screaming, rooting for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what it's all about. And I was like, we have to do something for these kids. They need to be more doing things which are much more fun. So what I did, I went home, made a few phone calls, wrote a few emails, and I was like, we need to make some playrooms for these kids. And that was the day that Khel Kamra was born. I really feel that this playroom is really going to create an environment for these kids to really learn how to dream. Because I think that is what is mainly lacking in their lives. They're so sad and they have nothing to look forward to. And I think that these playrooms are going to become like a haven where they come in and they just learn how to dream. Learn to be the next Da Vinci. Learn to play soccer like Maradona. Learn to sing like Justin Bieber. Learn to play video games and become a professional at Call of Duty. I don't know what God has in store for them, but I just want to create a space for them to do whatever their heart wants to do. Coming back to our sad friend Mithun, he wasn't sad anymore. And I remember the last thing I said to him before I left the orphanage. I hugged him and I said, Mithun, you are my Usain Bolt, and I want you to run like the wind and don't let anything ever stop you.